So in this episode, we'll be discussing trust. And I think in our work and the things that we do, we experience setbacks, frustrations, all of these things that can be obstacles in the road. But yeah, we hope that in this conversation we can learn how to move forward and how to trust God, trust ourselves, trust the people around us to get us through. So I have Kat with me, and I have a little bit of an interesting icebreaker. I think this one you'd have to dig deep a little bit. At least for me, because I know that I'm an impatient person. So perhaps this will be super easy for you. So the main question, Kat, is how long would you wait, right? And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and you'll kind of give me an answer on how long you're willing to wait for that. Okay, so the first is, how long would you wait for a loading web page with no progress bar?
Sure, a minute is too long. 30 seconds, I'm out of there. Yeah.
I feel you. I had to catch myself. I had this thing where I start doing 20-second countdown if something's taking long to load, just to help me pass the time. And if I reach 0, then it was way too long. I'm sorry. So I feel you on that. How long would you wait for a we need to talk message with no context?
So the other person saying we need to talk.
Yeah, with no context. How long would you be willing to wait for that?
I don't like we need to talk text. Like, talk about what? You know? So it's like, let's talk now. Yeah. I wanna let's talk now.
Yeah.
You know, let's just get it over and done with, because the anticipation, what is it gonna be about? And I don't like that feeling, you know, so let's talk now.
And say,
yeah.
I feel like say, we need to talk about ABC. You know, I've had this on my mind, but just you need to talk.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call you straight away. Don't text me that. Okay. How long would you be willing to wait for a delayed flight with no update?
I think it depends on. I mean, if you're trying to get back home, you'll wait because you want to get back home. Yeah. But if you're trying to get somewhere, I guess it depends how important it is and what it's about. So for me, it really depends on the context. It would be nice to have like a little bit of information. It's like comfort to say you're not waiting in vain. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think with flying, it's one of those, it's a little bit of a scary experience. So I think if there's a delay, I trust y'all. Don't put me in the sky if there was an issue. So I'm like, I'm willing to wait for that. But like you said, a little bit of an update would be super helpful. Just communicate. And then this one is the deep one. How long are you willing to wait for an answer to prayer?
Sure. Oh, that one. I know a lot of Christians struggle with waiting. Waiting is so hard. Waiting is so heartbreaking. Oh my goodness, waiting. Yeah, I think trusting the Lord with the frustrations of waiting is so important. That's what I'm learning in this season. Because sometimes, I used to think that I always needed to be on fire for the Lord, you know. And sometimes the weight, like on the wait, can feel very exhausting, and your faith gets tested, and then you're frustrated, and you're like, He is a sovereign Lord. How dare I be frustrated at Him? You know, you try not to be resentful towards God Himself because He's making you wait for so long, and sometimes you don't even understand why. You know, so waiting is. I think no one can master waiting. Nah, not even the Davids of this world could master that. Like, waiting is so hard, you know. And I think just trusting the Lord with that frustration is so important. You know, going to Him to say, Lord, I mean, I trust you, but like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, and it's frustrating me, and it's affecting my fellowship with you. And I remember I wrote a piece about this very topic, about how I am trying to not let my feelings dictate my fellowship with the Lord, you know, because if I'm feeling frustrated, it's like, I'm not going to read my Bible, you know. And that's what the enemy wants. He wants to get us as further away from the Lord as possible. So if he can use your moment of frustration, of anger, of whatever it is, to get you away from God, to pull you away, he knows he's winning. You know? So I've just been like just trying to learn not to allow my feelings to dictate, because my feelings are temporary,
Yeah.
my feelings are temporary and God is eternal. So I can't go to the enemy with my frustration. It's gonna mess me up. I need to go to the Lord and say, Lord, my faith is fractured. Help me. This waiting is too much, So
That's so good. And I think I was having this conversation with a friend recently, just around when it comes to work, we spend most of our hours at work. Like we divide some of our other hours, but we spend most of our hours doing some kind of vocational work. So I think when it comes to trusting God for purpose and for direction and for fruit in the work that we're doing, it can be really, really hard. I know one of the things that you mentioned, Kat, was the fact that you're like, this is the God of the universe. I can't be, like I can't be frustrated with him. What have been some of your ways or things that you have put in place to wait well? And I'm talking beliefs, things that you have to remind yourself versus reminders. That what does that look like for you? How do you position yourself to wait well?
Wow, that's such a weighty question,
Pun intended.
So with me, I guess some of the rituals I've put in place that have helped me is, I think, being mindful, because I think sometimes we tend to go on autopilot, and I know Mahlati mentioned this in our, I think, first episode. She spoke about how sometimes you're just doing the same thing over and over and over, and waiting can feel redundant. Like, I'm doing this, like, okay, and you can get on autopilot even with your faith, even with your fellowship with God. You wake up in the morning, you're supposed to do your devotionals, you're supposed to read scripture, you're supposed to pray, you're supposed to worship. It ends up feeling like a checklist, like, right, okay, I prayed today, Lord, and sometimes it's like, Lord, I've been waiting for so long, I prayed at least, like, and it's like, no, this is a relationship, you imagine if someone treated you like that, like your spouse or a friend, whenever they have to spend time with you, they're like, well, I'm here, like, what do you want from me, and I think sometimes when we try and put ourselves in the feet of Christ, like in his shoes, literally, to be like, if he treated us that way, how would we feel, So for me, it's just being intentional in my time with the Lord, and also just shutting out the world. Like, I feel like there's just too much noise, especially in your, like, quiet season or your waiting season. It's so important to silence the noise, because people are going to be asking you, so this thing of yours that you're doing, like, what's going on? Like, so I know you've been waiting on this particular dream, or you've been, working on this thing, and it's like the fruit of your obedience is not being rewarded. What's going on, And I think the danger is in then it becoming transactional. You don't want to be transactional with the Lord.
Yeah, that's good.
You really don't want to do that, So I think just the intentionality, for me, it's been the intentionality and just taking my time. Like, first of all, the time does not belong to us. So no matter how long you wait, the time belongs to the Lord at the end of the day. And so just relax. That's what I tell myself. Like, just chill, girl. Like, chill. It's gonna be okay. God's got you.
Yeah.
Just for now, use this time to grow near to him as much as you can, because when we get nearer and nearer and nearer to the Lord, we become more like him. And I think sometimes maybe he's prolonging our wait because he's refining something in us. Until you are a certain version of yourself, that next door's not gonna open. And God has all the time in the world. Literally, he's gonna wait for you. To fix yourself. He's gonna be like, we have to have that meeting, you and I. So come. Might as well do it now, so that I can work on you. I can chisel out whatever I need to. I can refine you. I can purify you, so that when you come out on the other side and I open that door, it's gonna find you so equipped, so competent for you to represent me well. The thing that I'm sending you for. You know what I mean? So yeah, just for me, it's just been intentional time with the Lord and allowing that to do whatever it needs to do.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I also think you touched on it a little bit, but It's the questions that people are asking, like, when will the thing happen? Like, when are we going to see fruit of what you're doing? Yeah, you're looking a little bit redundant, like, but I think, yeah, there's just so much to be said as well for us wanting to have, it's not that I want all of the answers. I just want to know that I'll be okay with it. Like, we just need, Lord, if you can just give me a quick flash image of what this looks like in 5 years, I'll come back. I don't even need all of the details of how it will turn out, but I just know that it will be okay, But the reality is that we don't always get that. And that's why I think the importance of not trusting the what, but trusting the who. We want to put our foundation and we want to put like stake on success in the way that we spoke about earlier. But the reality is, if I trust in the Lord and He's given me an instruction, I can put my full weight on Him, right? And knowing that whatever He said will come to pass, He will provide, He'll make the outcome according to what His will and His vision for this was. I think of the verse in the Bible that says, those who trust in the Lord with all of your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. It just is so packed. Just that, like that verse within itself is so packed. Trust in the Lord. Don't lean on your own understanding, because our understanding can trip us up. Also, God Himself has full perspective. Like we spoke about time. Where He's not within time like we are. He's the author of time. He knows the past far beyond what we can imagine. He knows the future. He knows the present, and not just Him knowing the present. He sees every angle, every person involved, every stakeholder. Like, God is just so trustworthy. He's competent enough for us to be able to put our trust in Him. So I think that for me is just an encouragement to those who feel like, I want to trust God, but I don't feel like I can. He's trustworthy, like He will make your path straight when you put your trust in Him. I think it's the who we give to trust. Yeah. And I hear that a lot in what you're saying. It's about the person of Jesus. He is the one that we put our hope in, and He's the one who determines the outcomes. So in this as well, for you, when things don't necessarily go the way that you hoped it would go, when do you feel like is a good time to pivot, or do I keep waiting on the Lord? Did I hear wrong? How do you navigate kind of like spaces where you feel like this is not necessarily turning out the way that I thought it would?
Well, that question, like as you were speaking, I was thinking about what we was speaking of earlier, right? So when some of the questions that people will ask you is, did God actually say that? It's some of the questions they'll ask during your waiting season. Like, are you sure you heard the Lord correctly? And then you start doubting yourself. Like, maybe I misheard the Lord. Maybe that's not what He said. Maybe I should pivot. Maybe I should try something different. For me personally, it's so crazy. I've tried several other different things and they didn't work out. For some reason, I keep going back to the same thing that I was supposed to do. And it's like, why am I doubting what the Lord said? Because I always just somehow find myself back there. Yeah. Even though it seems as if the fruits of my obedience aren't yielding, the results that I want them to. But how do I know what the results are supposed to look like? I don't know that, and I think sometimes being fixated on a specific outcome can be problematic. Yeah. Being fixated on a specific timeline can also be very problematic. You mentioned us living in this social media digital age. Everyone has a window into everyone's lives. And you look at timelines, like this person got this at 25, this 21, this, and then you start comparing yourself, And I feel like comparison is, it ignores the cost. Like you don't know the cost, like you don't know the back end of the blessing, you only know the front end, or like what you see. You don't know the steepness, you don't know that person's waiting season. Imagine if they said, hey, let's switch the experiences in our waiting seasons. And then you're like, no, I'm fine with my waiting season. Actually, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not easy. Like it's not easy for anyone.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's so important to just also be mindful. You know, and for me, I think it's we live in our heads too much sometimes. You know, and we forget to take it one day at a time. You know, we're always looking for the end result from the very beginning, sometimes even before the beginning. And it's like, just take it one day at a time. I mean, even in the Lord's Prayer, it says that daily bread, you know, like just take it one day at a time.
Yeah.
Like fresh grace every day, you know. And I used to be someone that used to, I'm working on that even now. Like I would struggle to forgive myself for the mistakes that I made because I used to have this perfectionist mindset, like I wanted everything to be perfect. So if I made mistakes, it's like I can't forgive myself, therefore I can't move on. And the joy of today is now being stolen because I'm thinking about the memory of yesterday.
Wow.
You know, and God gives us fresh bread, fresh grace every day. I mean, even the Israelites in Exodus, they got fresh manna every day. You know, they tried storing it up, but then it grew stale.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point. You need to go back to God every day for fresh grace, you know. So, yeah, for me, I think it's just taking it one day at a time, honestly, and not comparing yourself to other people so much, and not like having an expectation of a particular outcome or a particular timeline. Like, just let God surprise you, man.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I feel like He's the best person to surprise you,
Yeah.
you know, because He's good.
Yeah.
He can be trusted. So trust that,
Yeah.
you know? So, I mean, the fact that He woke you up every day, like, for me, when I wake up, I open my eyes, I'm like, oh, okay, so we're not done. You know, it's not over. I'm still here, you know? So that means something.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not over. So just, you know,
There's two terms that you used. One was perfectionism, and I want to touch into that a little bit, but expectation as well. Can you differentiate for us between perfectionism and excellence? What do those terms mean to you?
Oh, wow. It's so funny, like this conversation is just going back to like a lot of the stuff that I've written before. So for me, I'm reminded of the story of Gideon. Gideon was that guy who was just, when God said you, he was like, whoa, you know? And I think sometimes we expect ourselves to be perfect, to be seamless before we execute. You know, sometimes just go, you know, like stop waiting for it to be like perfect. And it's not going to be, like, especially the first time around, like the first episode of whatever you're doing, the first article, the first whatever, it's not going to be perfect. So don't expect it to be, you know, and remove that weight off your shoulders, because it's also another way that the enemy tries to steal from us. He wants us to believe that it has to be perfect before we can execute. Otherwise, people are going to see through the cracks. And a lot of the times, people don't even see the imperfections that you see. You know, it's because we are our own biggest critics. We will criticize ourselves like, and then the audience didn't even see. You know, the readers didn't even see. Instead, they were like, oh, wow. There was a post that I did a few months ago, and it was only last week when I was just going through like some of the stuff that I've written and looking to see if I can, you know, switch things up. And I picked up a spelling error. I'm like, and people were resharing that. I'm like, did they not see? And then I had to remove it and then fix that. And I was just like, wow, okay, you know. So I feel like excellence and perfection aren't the same. We are called to be excellent. That's why I mentioned Gideon, you know. There is a need to be competent. So the fact that the Lord said to him, you are a mighty warrior, that means he saw the competence in him. You know, that means there was excellence. But it doesn't mean perfection. You know what I mean? So to be excellent is important because that's the God that we claim to represent. And we don't want to misrepresent him. You know, he's a God of order, he's a God of excellence. You need to steward well whatever he's given you to steward. Do it properly, you know, show up properly. But don't now like be obsessed with perfection. You know, and who defines perfection anyway?
Right.
You know?
That's
so
man, so true. Also, I love what you're saying right now. I think it would be freeing for a lot of people, especially around starting. Don't let your idea, like you said, we don't know what perfection looks like. Don't let your idea of perfection stand in the way of you starting. And I think excellence, what we are called to, can look like doing as best as possible with what's in your hands. You know, like what God, you mentioned the word stewardship, what God has given you, how am I stewarding that well? And that is how much time I'm willing to put in, how am I holding the things that God has put in my hands to do. So good. I did also mention, and maybe let's wrap up with this one, the difference between expectation and being expectant.
Okay.
Do you see a difference in that? And if so, how?
Wow, that's a good one. I think expectation and being expectant, we're always supposed to be expectant. You know, I think sometimes when we've been waiting for so long, it can frustrate us to a point where we just no longer expecting. We're like, oh, whatever, you know, it's not gonna come. But I think that's the wrong heart posture. You know, I've felt that way so many times in my waiting. I felt like maybe I should just stop expecting because maybe it's not gonna happen. You know, and that's not okay. I think repentance is required in that area if that's, you know, the heart posture that you're experiencing. And there's grace, you know, I mean, the Lord, if anyone knows the struggles that we face. But when it comes to expectation, sometimes things don't go the way that we expect them to, you know, and be okay with that. Maybe sometimes they will go better, differently, you know, be open to the possibility of different, you know, like having a different expectation. And I think disappointment comes from unmet expectation. When you're fixated on a particular outcome. And like, then you're going to be disappointed because it's going to come differently. And you're going to think the Lord didn't come through, but he did. It just wasn't in the way that you expected, you know. So,
So giving up your idea of what God's showing up would look like.
Yes,
that's so good. Kat, it's been an amazing conversation. We're going to put links to your writing and some of your work in the description. So please do follow Kat, support the work that she does, support her obedience. And if you want to, firstly, we spoke a little bit about purpose within the workplace and purpose in what we do. Alpha is a space where we want to create spaces for conversation, for purpose. I think that's a great way to bring purpose into your workspace. Pran and Alpha create spaces for people to have conversation like this, to edify one another, but also to learn more. And if you haven't yet done it, subscribe to this channel. We post content like this, but so much more to help equip you in the spaces that you are called. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we can't wait to see you next time.